Hello and welcome to the meta tier list of May. We've had a few notable changes since the last video, which was in February, so let's just quickly cover those before we move on to the actual tier list. One big thing that was changed was the 5v5 crystal map, which is now different, and we briefly saw some very funky stuff come in, like Boltcasters, Iron Red Bloodletter, and some other rat gear in general, and people just tried to focus on holding the caps instead of fighting, which was personally pretty dumb, but now that the top players figure out meta a little bit more, it went back to the good old same, you guessed it, glaive. It always comes back to glaive eventually. But we see light crossbow and heavy crossbow making a slight comeback, which fell out of the meta before. Ironclad is now even more popular instead of the old Staff of Balance, and Druidic is the way to go for healing. Next up, we have Battle Axe and Forge Hammers. They got reworked, and Battle Axe is now no longer a weapon used just to cheese group content as a solo player, but now can be used in solo and group PvP, although it's just slightly outclassed by other options pretty much so, but it is playable now. Forge Hammers, I don't think I've seen anyone play it since, so I can only assume it's still pretty shit. One change for mostly corrupted players was the rework of boots. Now everyone is playing Rejuvenating Sprint, which is pretty funny. Later on in patch 7, they reworked Healing Sickness, which made some niche weapons more usable, but I don't think this had any major impacts on the meta. For patch 8, we got more balance changes. Halberd and Carrion Collar got some love, slight buff, not anything crazy, but hey, I think Halberd players at this point are happy they got anything. They reworked Fists of Avalon, but it's bugged since it actually purges after the damage comes through. Let's see how long it takes for SBA to fix this one. And finally, the big nerf everyone has been waiting for is Frost. Frost finally got nerfed, believe it or not, but it's still number 1 on the tier list. Spoiler alerts, that should tell you something about how strong it is. Slight damage nerf on the Q and slightly longer cooldown on the one-handed Frost, the Frost Staff. I think this is a fair nerf. Frost still has insane DPS and utility if left to free cast. Hopefully this too long didn't read was useful for you. As always, you can just go to the Albion online website and see the full patch notes since the last video for yourself. But with this out of the way, let us take a look at the Hellgate tier lists. Let's start off with the 2v2 tier list. Thanks to Legal, by the way, for helping out with this one. So with Frost getting nerfed, it now just barely drops to the A tier, and Claymore takes the number 1 spot. Great Holy also got a slight nerf with the knockback, so it's no longer that much better than the other Holy options, but otherwise the meta is still the same. Battle Axe is now kind of playable as a DPS alongside a healer, but you will get farmed if you try it at a high infamy. But yeah, Claymore and Great Holy is the way to go. Frost, Deathgivers, and Demonic are your second best options, and then at B tier you just have the best one-shot comps such as Grail and One-Handed Dagger, or just other subpar DPS and healing options. Not much change though, meta is almost the same as before. For the 5v5 tier list, again we're assuming top competitive players who know what they're doing. We have the standard GVG comp with Glaive and Ironclad, but you also have some other comps that can be played, such as the very popular THC Dive, as named after the player THC, with Carving, Heavy Mace, Mace, Hellfall, and Bloodletter. Then we have the Healing Reduction comp, which, as the name would imply, just relies on dots, bleeds, and healing reduction to eventually outlast the opponent. Then we still have the good old one-shot Grail Seeker comp, which still works and will turbo stomp in experienced teams, but the reason I rated it only at C tier is because I genuinely think that it will not work against pro teams who know what they're doing, and if you really want to try hard and win, you can stall into lava and make it a lot harder for them to reset if they do mess up. Everything else is basically a strictly worse version of a weapon already mentioned up there, or straight up unplayable garbage. For the 10v10 tier list, Longbow slightly fell out of the meta, but is still a very solid contender. I've done a fair bit of 10s recently, so I think I can confidently say that the comp I put together is definitely top meta at the moment due to its one-shot combo, which is very hard to counter and has strong disengage plus kite potential. Black Monk also picked up massive popularity as well since then. It's very interesting to see that Bloodletter actually doesn't even see play in this comp at all. And while we're on the topic of 10v10s, I do think there's a few counters that people could try, but I've yet to see other teams pull it off successfully. But I think that's just due to a lack of pro teams putting in effort into playing 10v10s in general, because in theory this comp should also be like C or B tier, just like the Grail one-shot in 5v5s. I just think it will take some time until people figure out how to beat it consistently. And last but not least, we have the overall top 10 tier list, and I think it comes to no surprise that Froststaff is still the undisputed #1 champion. We have insane utility, short cooldown E, crazy DPS, and we see the light crossbow went up to 3rd place due to seeing plays in 5v5s again, but also Burpaws just barely made it to the top 10 due to how flexible it is for solo play and being overall decent in multiple types of group content. I don't think anything else is too out of the ordinary yet. Everything looks similar to last time since February. Bloodletter, of course, at #2 yet again due to how flexible it is for multiple types of content. And yeah, that's all I had for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and a comment if you have any feedback, and I'll see you next time.